Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, the channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Alright folks, so I'm recording this video on the 12th of October, and that date is important because I'm making a prediction here. I'm going to release this video on the 13th, and I'm either going to look like a complete fool, or I'm going to hit it right on the money. I'm going to be absolutely correct once again. I've been right every single other time, so you know what? I'm banking that I'm going to be right this time. I think Joe Biden and this administration are full of crap, and their timing once again is going to be absolutely awful here, and they're going to end up looking like complete fools. Tomorrow is October the 13th, or when you're watching this video, it's October the 13th, and we're getting the CPI report, or CPI reading, of course the Consumer Price Index reading, for the prior month of September. And literally 2 days before this reading, what are Joe Biden and of course his White House goons doing? They're celebrating this incredible economic recovery and just how strong the American economy is. Joe Biden goes on the record once again claiming the US is not in a recession, and I'm pretty sure that on October 13th that CPI reading is going to release, and markets are probably going to continue to tank because it's probably not going to be good. Call me a pessimist, call me whatever you want to call me. The trend has been clear here, and I don't see why things are going to change, because the fundamentals have not changed. Nothing has changed. And certainly the one thing that refuses to change here is the credibility of this administration. Americans are pleading with this administration to take the economy seriously, to take monetary policy seriously. They're looking directly at Joe Biden and saying, listen man, I voted for you, things are really bad, I cannot afford my house payments, my car payments, I can't afford to buy groceries, to fill up my car and bring my kids to school. I need you to take this seriously. And Joe Biden's response is, I've done such a fantastic job now, haven't I? We're not in a recession, wages are up, and we're doing just such a good job. The American Rescue Plan and my inflation reduction scam is working according to plan. What a slap in the face, rather another slap in the face. It never ends. I'm referring to the dishonesty. The dishonesty of this administration never ends. And let's get into it, folks. Let's take a look at what's going on. Let's roll the tape. All right, friends, so I don't even have the data. It's going to release tomorrow, I think 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 Eastern if I'm not mistaken. My prediction, either CPI is going to remain stagnant, tick down a little bit, or possibly even tick up. It's going to be within that same ballpark. We'll have to see exactly what happens, but I think core inflation's probably going to be up. Year-to-year inflation is certainly going to be up. Essentially, I think it's going to be bearish. I don't think it's going to look good. Markets are already down across the board, anywhere from 20 to 30%. The S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Dow Jones have completely wiped all of their gains since Joe Biden took office. This, of course, didn't exactly age well.
The stock market, the last guy's measure of everything, is about 20% higher than it was when my predecessor was there.
Well, that certainly didn't age well, but hey, you can't blame Joe. That was from 2021. That was a while ago. A completely different time, a different set of circumstances. Well, of course, that's a pretty bad excuse considering Joe Biden is still patting himself on the back, and so are all of his goons. I was going to play these clips separately and go into them one-to-one, but you know what? Let's just create a little montage. Here's everything that came out of the Brandon regime over the last 2 days. This is recent stuff, like 24 to 48 hours ago.
Should the American people prepare for a recession?
No. Look, they've been saying this now, how every 6 months they say this. Every 6 months they look down the next 6 months and see what's going to happen. It hadn't happened yet. It hadn't. There's no guarantee that they're going to be. I don't think there will be a recession. If it is, it'll be a very slight recession. That is, we'll move down slightly.
What we're seeing is an economy that doesn't define what a recession would look like.
We still see the impact of COVID in China and the slowdown in Chinese growth. And with high inflation and tightening monetary policy in many advanced countries, emerging markets from really all of these factors are suffering many stresses. So there's a lot to talk about. But from the perspective of the United States, I think the United States is doing very well.
And I feel like a broken record here. And that's because I'm still making the same points that I've been making over and over and over again. Because this administration continues to do the same thing over and over again. I mean, they're expecting different results. I think this is their strategy, to double down on, this is a great historic economic recovery. We're doing just fantastic. And it seems as though they're doing it on purpose to release these statements right before the CPI reading, hoping that at some point the CPI reading is going to come down significantly and they could take a victory lap. I mean, talk about a disingenuous strategy. That has to be the strategy. Joe Biden's going to do a little media interview ahead of each CPI reading and say, look, folks, the Inflation Reduction Act, we've done all of these good things. There's no recession. And they're hoping that a miraculous, magical CPI reading is going to hit the next day and they can sound the horns and pop the confetti and say, see, I told you so. The Inflation Reduction Act is working. Even though it didn't work for the last 12 months straight, you just had to be patient and bear with us. Absolutely disingenuous. It's like being a degenerate gambler, losing 100 times in a row and then celebrating your one victory and posting it on Instagram as if you're a professional gambler and you only make money, even though you're only showing the one time you won and omitting the 100 times you lost. Well, I think this time's going to be another massive, fat, big L for the Biden administration, because like I said in the intro, nothing has changed. If anything, things have gotten worse. I mean, there's Joe Biden's foreign policy blunders, Joe Biden begging the Saudis to drill more oil to bail out the United States from his disastrous policy decisions, which of course Joe Biden is now denying. He never went there to beg the Saudis. No, of course not. It wasn't even about oil.
By the way, let's get straight why I went. I didn't go to one about oil. I went about making sure that we made sure that we weren't going to walk away from the Middle East.
Yeah, sure, buddy. Everyone believes you. Well, of course, oil prices are on the rise. They went down a little bit in September and then towards the end started to spike up, I think around September 26th or 27th. So it's possible that we see CPI tick down a little bit. But even if Joe Biden gets that win of the headline inflation number being a little bit lower, which it might not be, by the way, or it might be relatively stagnant or drop less than expected, the most important number and the only number that matters to the Fed is core inflation, core CPI, which I really wouldn't be surprised if that starts to ramp up. Core CPI is the inflation number that omits energy and food costs. So basically the cost of producing basic goods and services. Well, considering the report that came out yesterday with producer prices,
our September read on producer prices, the supplier side of the cost equation, expected up 0.2 on headline, multiply that by 2, up 0.4, up 0.4. That's the hottest since it was in June when it was up 1%. And if we look at ex-food and energy, which almost sounds silly because food and energy, especially energy, that's the big enchilada here. Ex-food and energy, it did come in as expected, up 0.3. And of course, in the rearview mirror, we have up 0.4. Don't see revisions yet. Now, if we strip out food, energy, and trade, it's double expectations, up 0.4. Now we get to the real numbers. Year over year final demand expected up 8.4 is hotter than expected, up 8.5.
I wouldn't be surprised if core CPI goes up. And what does that mean? That means the Fed will continue with demand destruction. That means the stock market is going to continue to make new lows. We might see 3,300 on the S&P, maybe even lower if things continue this way and the Fed announces another 75 basis point hike. And I honestly think that's what's being priced into the markets right now. Economic and consumer sentiment is the lowest that it's been in decades. Economic and consumer sentiment is the lowest it's been since 2008. Savings, credit card debt, we're seeing the exact same thing. The housing market is dry. The car market is exploding, or imploding is probably a better way to say it. Everything is tanking, and the one thing that this administration has is the jobs market and the jobs numbers, which, by the way, last month weren't so hot. And if we see more market capitulation, if we see more mass sell-offs in the market, if we see more investment capital being taken out of the economy and interest rates continue to rise, well, guess what the next step is? An earnings recession and a jobs recession, meaning people are going to get fired, companies are going to be making less money, their balance sheets are going to be looking grim, and we might be facing the worst recession since 2008. Yet Joe Biden claims that we're not in a recession, or we might see a slight recession. Janet Yellen says we're doing just fantastic fantastic. Karine Jean-Pierre says we're seeing progress when it comes to disposable income as real wages continue to decline, and we're likely to see mass layoffs. It's again the exact same thing. It's been I don't know how many months of me making these videos. It's the same continued dishonesty from this administration. I mean, they're the doctors and you have a sick country, a sick economy, and they're just refusing to hand out the diagnosis. The hopium, the copium, everything's all right, they continue to say, when it really isn't. It probably isn't. Again, I'm making this video on October 12th. I don't know what the number is going to be on October 13th. We'll have to see. But I'm just making this prediction a day in advance that Joe Biden's little claim here, Joe Biden's little preemptive victory tour, isn't exactly going to age well. And I'm just going to continue to emphasize the fact that this administration is not only incompetent and incoherent, but they're flat out liars. They're propagandists, and it's just so despicable and disgusting to me the way they continue to face the American people and say everything's okay when it probably isn't. I mean, Joe Biden said everything was okay before markets tanked like 20+%. It's just bad and irresponsible financial advice. People who are listening to Joe Biden would have bought into the market and lost a ton of money. And if you bought specific companies instead of buying broad indexes, you could be down 50 to 60%. That's what I mean by this administration is absolutely irresponsible. They're complete liars and they're willing to say anything to save their own neck, and I just find it so despicable. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. I'm gonna get back to work. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.